Hey everyone, Cody from Mactelecom Networks. The time has finally come to do the full 2024 complete Unifi Network build video. A lot has changed since our 2023 build video that was done about 8 months ago with the Unifi interface. This video will be fairly long and there will be timestamps down below where you can pick and choose which section you want to watch. If you're new here, make sure to hit the sub button. I'm about 10,000 subs away from 100,000. If you'd like to hire me for network consulting, visit my website at mactelecomnetworks.com. And if you'd like to support my channel, the best way to do so is to use my Ubiquity affiliate link in the description below. At this point, if you're watching this video, I assume you have already bought some Unifi Network gear. I will quickly show you some of the types of Unifi consoles that they have to offer for your deployment. Picking the right console and switches and APs is crucial to your deployment. And if you'd like to have a separate video on that, let me know down in the comments below. Right on the Ubiquity website, under our cloud gateways, they show us a comparison between the different gateways. The first one and the newest one to the stack is the Dream Machine Pro. This could do 10 gigabits per second, and it could do 5 gigabit per second with IDS and IPS turned on. It could handle 200 plus unified devices and 2,000 plus clients. So if you're doing this at a large scale, that's what you would need to go for. They also have the Dream Machine Pro and the SE that both do 3.5 gigabit per second routing with IDS and IPS turned on. It could support up to 100 devices, and it could support up to 1,000 clients. The next device is the Dream Wall, which I think would be more used for your home. It could also do 3.5 gigabit per second routing with IDS and IPS turned on, 100 unified devices, and 1,000 clients. Then we have the Cloud Gateway Ultra, which does 1 gigabit with IDS and IPS turned on, 30 unified devices, and 300 clients. This would be better for your house. But they also do offer a couple other devices than this if we click on the store. Now going into the store under our Unifi Cloud Consoles, you could see that they also have the Dream Router, they have the Unifi Express, and these would be meant for homes in my opinion, because the Dream Router only does about 700 megabits per second, and the Unifi Express only allows us to have up to 5 unified devices adopted into the controller. Another great tool when you're starting to deploy your network is design.ui.com. You could see here on screen that I already have devices added, such as Wi-Fi access points and cameras. I have a full video on the Design Center, and I'll put that down in the description below. Before we get started, let's take a look at the topology that we're going to be working with. Now, this is some of the network gear that I currently have. I didn't show a few things like the RPS, my UNVR, and the PDU Pro. At the top, we have my ISP, and I do have 2 ISPs, and we'll test that WAN failover eventually. Connecting to the ISP is a UDM Pro. Connecting to my UDM Pro is a USW Aggregation Pro switch, and then down from there, I'm connecting all of my other devices. So my Pro Max 24 PoE and this other 8-port PoE switch that is just in my office. I also have a couple flex switches that I use for my cameras. For access points, I'm using the U7 Pro Max and then the U7 Pro Wall. I have one in my main floor and then one in my basement. We're going to have 5 different networks. The first network is our default or our management. This management network will have all of our Ubiquity gear connected to it at 192.168.10.1/24, and there won't be any Wi-Fi connected to this. The next one is going to be our guest network. The guests will be able to go out to the internet, but they can't see any other network or any client connected to that network. We also have the IoT network, which will be blocked from other networks, and we have a secure network, which will have my computers on it. So this Windows machine and my Mac downstairs. We also will have my camera network, as I have a UNVR Pro and quite a few Unifi cameras. Now we see the topology that we're going to be working with. We need to go through the initial setup wizard, and to start your UDM Pro or any of your Unifi consoles, there's a few ways that we could do this. We could either go directly to the IP if we have a computer plugged into it, and I do. This desktop is plugged into the UDM Pro, so we'll go over to 192.168.1.1. An easier way is to download the Unifi Network Controller on your phone. That way you could set up the initial wizard with Bluetooth. But let's hop right into the initial setup. Now you can see that I typed in 192.168.1.1 into the taskbar, and it's saying Ubiquity is committed to securing your data and protecting your privacy. set up the UDM Pro. From here, we could give the console a name. I'm just going to call it 2024. That's because this video is for 2024, and we're going to agree to the terms in service, and then we're going to press next. The next step is to sign into your UI.com account if you have a single sign-on account. If you want to do this locally, you can as well. You could proceed without an account. So I'm going to put my email and my password in, and then we're going to press next. The next thing it's going to do for us is it's going to run a speed test and show us our download and our upload. I have 941 down by about 55 upload, and that looks about right for my connection, and we're going to press next. Now this default IP change comes up because I'm not in bridge mode on my modem. It says we have detected an already configured network subnet mask of 192.168.0.1/24. Do you want to use the existing one or set up a new one manually? We'll just say use previous subnet mask, which is recommended. We will be changing this anyways once we get into the controller, and we'll press finish. The initial setup is now complete. In this video, we're only going to be focusing on the Unifi Network controller. We won't be looking at protect, access, talk, UID, or connect. I will do those later on this year, and we'll do full 2024 videos. But what we could see right on the dashboard is this UDM Pro needs an update. We're currently sitting on 3.1.16, and we have auto updates turned on. I typically don't have auto updates enabled, so I'm going to press apply changes, and I'll have to manually go in, update the devices and the OS. If you're using this for your home and you're not going into your Unifi console at least once a month, you may want to leave auto updates on. But what we're going to do, we're going to update the Unifi OS. We'll click on update. It will go to 3.2.12, and this will take a few minutes. Now we have the updates done. We need to get our devices adopted into our network. I'm going to click on the network controller, and then on the left-hand pane, we're going to see the Unifi devices. On this dashboard, we can see that there's 8 devices ready to be adopted. Why do we want to adopt our devices? Well, to be able to push configuration and do changes to our switches and to access points, they need to be within our controller. So when we create a Wi-Fi SSID and it's adopted, it will push out right to that access point. So we're going to press adopt all. Now you can see that these are getting ready and they're adopting, and they're this yellowish color. Once they're adopted into the controller, they're all going to be showing as green. Everything is adopted into our controller, but you could see that we have a talk phone and we also have some cameras that are all in this one list. If we want to separate them by controller, we could do that. We go into the right-hand corner and click here, and then it says group by applications. I find this easier to read if we're grouping it by network, protect, talk, and access. The next thing we need to do is create our networks and our Wi-Fi networks, but I'm going to change the background to be dark mode. So we'll go over to our settings wheel, and then we'll click on system. From system, we could do our different themes. So I'm going to select dark, and then we're going to apply the changes. Going into our network, the only network that we currently see is the default, which is sitting on 192.168.0.0/24. If we go back to our topology, we want to change that to 192.168.10.1. So we'll go back to the network controller, we'll click on default, and then we're going to unselect auto scale. From auto scale, we're going to have 192.168.10.1. and that's going to be a /24. Once I press apply changes, this is going to re-IP all of our Ubiquiti gear. Now with the default network IP change, we need to create our other networks. We're going to click on new virtual network. We need to give it a name, and this first name will be guest. Our router for this is going to be 2024, which is my UDM Pro. But if you do have layer 3 switches, you could use that as well. And we will create a network using a layer 3 switch and check out the access list later on in this video. But what I want to do, I want to uncheck auto scale and then give it the IP scheme that we have in our topology. So 192.168.20.1/24. From here, I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to click on manual. I'm going to give it a VLAN ID of 20. And since this is a guest network, we're going to select guest network so that it only gets internet access and it doesn't see any of our other networks. Once that's done, all we need to do is press add. The next network we're going to create is our IoT network. So we'll name it IoT. We'll deselect the auto scale and give it an IP scheme of 192.168.30.1. And we'll scroll down again to manual. Under the VLAN ID, I'll give it 30, and we're not going to select on guest network or isolate network. We will create our own firewall rules or traffic rules just so you can see how that's done, and then I'm going to press add. The next network we're going to create is our secure network. This has an IP address of 192.168.40.1, and we're going to again change the VLAN ID to the third octet, so 40, and then we'll add that network. And the last network is going to be our camera network. This has an IP of 192.168.50.1/24. We'll go to manual, and then we'll give it a VLAN ID of 50. With our networks now created, these are wired networks. We need to create wireless networks. So if we go over to Wi-Fi, we could select the name for our first Wi-Fi network. We're not going to have a Wi-Fi network for our default, but we are going to for our guest. And I'll give this a name of Mactelecom guest. I'll give this a password of test1234 just for this video, but you want to make it stronger, and it has to be a minimum of 8 characters. Under our network, this is what's going to tell us what range to pick from. It's currently set to our default, but we want it to go over onto the guests. Since this is a guest network, we want to have client device isolation. So if there's 2 iPhones on the guest network, they can't see each other. So I'll click client device isolation, and then we'll add the Wi-Fi network. Every time you add a Wi-Fi network, you're going to see your access points getting ready, and this is pushing the configuration out to them. When it does get ready, this will drop all Wi-Fi connections. Now, the next network I'm going to create is my IoT, which is called Dolores. I'm going to put in my password for it, and then I'm going to select the IoT network in the list. I'm going to leave everything else at default. The 2.4, the 5, and the 6 gigahertz will be enabled as I have Wi-Fi 7 APs, and we're going to add the Wi-Fi network. This next network will be for my secure network, which will be Mactelecom. I'll also put my password in, and then we're going to select the network to be secure. And then we're going to leave everything else at default, as the defaults are pretty good, and we'll add the Wi-Fi network. I do have a camera network, but I don't have any Wi-Fi cameras, so we don't need to create a wireless network for that. Something cool that Ubiquiti came out with since my last video was PPSK. So if we create a new Wi-Fi network, we'll call it PPSK, and then we select manual. We have to turn off the 6 gigahertz because PPSK doesn't work with WPA3. If we scroll down to the bottom, you could say it's using WPA2/3. We need to change this to WPA2. Now going back up, we could see that we could select PPSK or private pre-shared keys. Hovering over the eye icon, it says access additional networks via unique password, all on the same Wi-Fi connection. So if we didn't want to have 3 or 4 Wi-Fi SSIDs, we could combine them all into one, and different passwords will route them to different networks. So I'll just show you an example right now. We'll click on it, and then we'll select the network. Let's say my guest network. When anybody types in test1234 and they're connected to that PPSK Wi-Fi network, they're going to get routed to the guest network. If we want to add another one, say our IoT network, and we say test12345, when somebody adds in test12345, they'll get routed to the IoT network. I do have a full video on this, and I'll put that down in the description below. With our networks and our Wi-Fi networks now created, we need to push over our wired networks to the correct VLAN. So how we do that, we could go onto my USW Pro Max 24 PoE, because I know that there are some cameras on here. If we click over on Port Manager, we're going to see the cameras pop up. So we have a chime, we have my doorbell, we have a couple G5 flexes, and then we have a few other things. I'm going to select all the devices at once that need to go onto the camera network. So port 5, port 6, port 10, and port 13. From here, we could scroll down and you could see that the native VLAN, or the network that it's currently sitting on, is the default. But we don't want that to be on our default. It needs to be on our camera. So I'm going to go down and select VLAN 50, which is my camera network, and we're going to apply the changes. Now with those devices pushed over to the camera network, I usually do a power cycle on them just so that they grab an IP quicker. So on my chime, and we could only do this one at a time, I'll click on the chime and then we'll select power cycle, and this will power cycle the device and restart it. We could also do that for my doorbell and all of my other cameras. One other thing that we want to do for this, I've selected all my cameras again. The tagged VLAN management, we don't want to allow all. We only want the cameras to be able to see the camera network, so we're going to block all. The only thing it will be able to see is this VLAN 50, and then we'll apply the changes. Now, the same thing goes for our IoT devices. Right now, I only have one IoT hub plugged in, which is my Philips Hue on port 6. I'm going to click on port 6, and I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to change the network to be on IoT, and we're also going to block all. From here, we're going to press apply changes. Something really important that people usually mess up and they wonder why their VLANs aren't going out or they're not getting IPs from a specific VLAN is they block their trunk ports. So if we click on the UDM Pro and we go over to port manager, you could see that my downlink is port 11. Clicking on port 11, we want to make sure this is on our default and that it allows all. You can prune VLANs if you want for more security, but typically from our UDM to our switch, from switches to other switches, and then from switch to access points, we want to allow all so that every new VLAN we create goes down to all the access points and the switches. I went to all of my switches and put my wired devices on the correct VLAN. One other new thing Ubiquiti introduced is this VLAN section. I'm on my Pro Max 24 PoE, and at the top we could see our native VLAN assignment. We could see on port 5 and 6, its native VLAN is 50. If we scroll down, you could see a bunch of them that are grayed out for default 1, 20, 30, and 40. And that's because I did that block all for the camera network. The only thing that could pass through that port is the camera VLAN. The next thing we need to do is some basic firewall rules. By default, out of the box, when you set up Ubiquiti, every network could talk to one another. So if we bring up a command prompt, and I type in ipconfig, you would see that I'm on 192.168.40.195. If I ping, say 192.168.10.90, which is one of my flex switches, these are going to reply back to me. I don't want that to happen. I don't want my secure network to be able to see anything else, as well as my IoT or my cameras. So to get to our security, we need to go over to the settings wheel. From here, I'm going to go over to profiles, and then profiles will go to IP groups. We're going to create a new IP group, and this is going to be called RFC 1918. And what this is, it's a white paper on all the IPv4 private addresses. The type is going to be an IPv4 address subnet, and the first address will be 192.168.0.0/16. The second address will be 172.16.0.0/12. And the third will be 10.0.0.0/8. Once we add all three of those in, we just need to press add at the bottom. Now with that IP group created, we need to go over to our security tab. From our security tab, we have traffic and firewall rules. So there's two different ways we could do this. We could do it simple, which uses traffic rules, or we could do advanced, and that makes us create our own firewall rules. The first one that we're going to create, and we see this under our internet, is allow established and related. And if we click on that, it says allows packets from the internet that are a reply to traffic sent from devices behind the unified gateway. But we're going to do this on LAN in, so between our subnets. Your system may be different for what firewall rules you have, but I'm just going to set allow established and related to any. Now to create a new entry, we just select create entry, and our type is going to be LAN in. So LAN in is all between our networks that we've created. The name I'm going to put is allow established and related. Like I said before, I'm just going to leave the source and destination to any, but you could select which networks you want to be able to do this between, and then we're going to go from advanced and manual, and then this will be established and related, and then we're going to add the rule. The next rule we're going to create is again under LAN in. So pretty much everything we do here will be under LAN in, and it will be allow default to all VLANs. And the reason the default needs to go to all of our VLANs is that's where our Unifi Network devices sit on, and it needs to talk to everything. So the source is going to be a network, and that's going to be our default network. The destination is going to be a port IP group of RFC 1918. So the default network could get to every single IPv4 private address, and then we'll add the rule. Now this next rule is going to be block inter VLAN routing. So our IoT network won't be able to see our default, our secure, our cameras, and vice versa. Our secure won't be able to see anything else as well. So I'm going to call that block inter VLAN routing. The action I'm going to have is to drop, and then the source is going to be a port IP group of RFC 1918, and the destination will be the same. So it's blocking private addresses from private addresses. and then we'll add the rule. Now, since I'm sitting on the secure network, I shouldn't be able to hit this 192.168.10.90, which was one of my switches. So I'm going to hit the up arrow and then I'm going to press enter. And you can see that I'm not able to hit that switch, but I have a Synology NAS that's sitting on my default just for testing. So I need to be able to hit that from this secure computer. So what we need to do, we need to create another rule. I'm going to create an entry. This is going to again be done under LAN in, and we're going to allow secure network to NAS. The source is going to be a network of my secure, and the destination, I'm just going to put in an IP address. The IP address of my NAS is 192.168.10.220, and then we're going to add the rule. Right now, if we try to ping 192.168.10.220, the pings aren't going to reply. That's because the firewall rules are done in top-down order. So we're going to go down and then we hit this blocking rule. So what we need to do, we need to bring this one above the blocking rule. We'll bring back the command prompt and then I'm going to press the up arrow. And now you can see we're getting ping replies to our Synology NAS that will allow my computer to access it. Another way we could block out networks is from our traffic rules. So we're going over to simple, and then if we create an entry, we could give it a name, block networks. The action is going to be to block, and then the source is going to be a device or network. So if we want to block from secure to IoT, we could select secure as our source, and then we could have our destination. We scroll down, we could do a local network, and then we could say that we want it to be blocked between IoT, and then we could save. We also have a traffic direction, so we could do source to destination. That means destination could go back to source, but we could also do it both directions. With this, once we press add rule, it's going to add this rule and it's not going to allow us to communicate from the source to the destination, as you can see here. If we click on advanced again, it's going to show us a different icon. We could see this wall as firewall rules, and then we could see this traffic light as traffic rules, which is really neat. There are some other things that we can do with traffic rules as well. So let's create an entry, and I'm going to say block social media to PC. So this computer I'm sitting on, we're going to block any social media to it. So we're going to select a device or a network. It will be my Mactelecom computer. Now the destination, it could either be an app or it could be an app group, domain, IP address, region, internet, or it could be local network. We're just going to select app group, and then I'm going to select social networks. Once I press add rule to this, we shouldn't be able to get to the main popular social media sites. The social media blocking is now enabled, so let's open up a new Chrome tab, and we're going to go to Facebook and see if we could get there. As you can see, it just keeps spinning and it looks like it's timing out. I'm going to try to go to Instagram as well. Again, the same thing is happening. Now let's try one last one, and let's try Twitter to see if this is a part of that group. And it looks like that traffic rule for blocking social media is working how it should be. There's one other thing that I like with the traffic rules that we could do, and that is limiting speed. To limit the speed, we're going to create a new entry, and I'll call this limit guest to 10 by 10. Now we can see the action, and this is going to be speed limit. And the nice thing about this, it does it for the Wi-Fi and the wired network. Our destination, or our network actually, is going to be the guest network, and I'll save that. And our destination is going to be out to the internet. We could see here that the download speed is in kilobits per second. I'm going to switch that to megabits per second, and we're going to have that at 10 by 10. You could also have this on a schedule if you want, but I'm going to leave it on always, so 24/7, and then we're going to add the rule. With this rule on, now the guest, either wired or wireless, will only get 10 megabits per second down and 10 megabits per second up. One last thing for firewall rules is blocking out our gateways. So if we're on the IoT network, we don't want to be able to get to the guest gateway, the secure gateway, the camera, or the default. That is just not best practice, so we want to block that out. We are sitting on the secure network right now, but if we open up a new tab, we'll be able to get to 192.168.20.1, and I'll show you in a new tab. So if I type 192.168.20.1 and press enter, we're able to get directly to the UDM Pro sign-in page. This isn't a massive deal if you have two-factor authentication on, but we still shouldn't allow people to get to it. I'm only going to show you how to block the gateways on my secure network. You could replicate this for your other networks. If you're using Unifi Protect on your UDM Pro and you've created a camera network, you're not going to want to block that gateway because it will make your camera streams very, very slow and maybe unusable at times. But what we need to do, we need to create some profiles. So I'll click on Profile and we'll go IP group. From here, we'll create new. This I'm going to call Block Secure to Gateways. It's going to be an IPv4 subnet, and we're going to just put in the gateway IPs of all of the other networks. So 192.168.10.1, 192.168.20.1, 192.168.30.1, and 192.168.50.1. The reason we're not putting 40.1 is because that's our secure network's gateway, and if we did that, we wouldn't have internet access. Now there's two more groups that we need to create. I'm going to create new, and I'm going to call this one the Secure IoT. And in this group, it's going to be an IPv4 address, and it's just going to be the gateway of the secure network. So 192.168.40.1, and we'll press add. The next one is going to be a port group, and this port group will be HTTP, HTTPS, and SSH. This will make more sense when we start writing the firewall rules, but the first port is port 80, then 443, and then 22. Now that we have the profiles created, we need to go over to our security and then back to traffic and firewall rules. We're going to want to create a new entry, and this is going to all be done under the LAN local. The LAN local will apply to our gateway. So we'll scroll down and we'll click LAN local. I'm going to call it Block Secure Network to Gateways. I'm going to drop it, and the source is going to be a network, and this is going to be of our secure network, and the destination is going to be a port IP group that we just created, Block Secure to Gateways, and then we're going to add the rule. Now that firewall rule is written, we could try to ping 192.168.10.1, and we're not able to get there. If we try to do 20.1, we won't be able to get to there either, but we could still hit 40.1. And if we bring up a new tab and I press enter, you're going to see that we're still going to be able to get to our gateway IP. Like I said, if we block this out, we'll have no internet access, but there's a way around that. We're going to go back to security, and then we're going to create a new entry. From here, it's going to be done under LAN local again, and I'm going to say Block Secure to UDM interface. We're going to drop the traffic, and the source is going to be our secure network. The destination is going to be a port IP group of our secure IoT, and that just has our IoT gateway IP 192.168.40.1, and then we're going to block the port group. Once we do this, we shouldn't be able to get to that web interface. Now I have 192.168.40.1 in the browser. I'm going to press enter, and we should just time out, and it won't let us do that interface, which makes our network a little bit more secure. In a recent update, Ubiquiti allowed us to do blocking between access lists on our layer 3 switches. Right now, I don't have any networks going over layer 3, but let's create a new one. I'm just going to call it layer 3. And then we're going to have this route over my aggregation switch, and then I'm going to press add. To create access lists, there's a few ways that you could do it. I'm just going to show you under the network page. We could see layer 3 network isolation. If we hover over the information icon, it says block all IPv4 traffic between devices on different networks. This blocking is applied to the switch level using IPv4 access lists. Use IP ACL rules to block traffic between specific devices on different networks, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to check that off. Once we do that, I'm going to create an entry. So the source is going to be my layer 3 network, and the destination, I'm just going to isolate it from everything else, and we'll click at the top, and then we'll press create. Now this blocks that layer 3 network from getting to any other network, and it's fairly straightforward to do. Now there's a few other things that we could do to secure our network under the security tab. Under our general, we have the ad blocking. So if we click on ad blocking, we're able to select whichever network we want for ads to be not shown on. I'm just going to leave it off for now, but we could also do DNS Shield. So DNS Shield ensures privacy and security of DNS traffic by encrypting it using DNS over HTTPS. DNS resolution may fail if the selected server, DOH servers, are not reachable due to ISP or regional blocking. I'm going to have mine on manual, and this will have us use Cloudflare and Google, which is just fine with me. And then we're going to create a couple honeypots. So detect and log requests made by specific IP addresses in order to find malicious clients on the network. And there is a learn more link if you want to learn more about the honeypots. But we're going to create new, and we're going to have this on every single one of our networks. By default, the honeypot IP is the .2 of the networks. So make sure you don't have that assigned to anything else. You can change that though if you want. I don't have anything on the .2, so we're just going to create them for all of our networks. Under internet safety, this is where we could do our geo blocking for country restrictions. I'm going to turn that on, and I'm going to block China and Russia. Those are the only countries that I typically block, but you could see the full list here and you could select whoever you want. So I'm going to click on Russia, and then I'm going to type in China. Under country restrictions, we have our suspicious activity. I'm going to turn mine on to advanced because I want mine as secure as possible. It's going to be going over all of our networks, and I believe the limits on the UDM Pro, the UDM Pro Max, and the UDM SE is 10 networks. It might be less for different devices like the UDR, and you will have less toggle switches. But the filtering mode, I don't want it to notify me. That doesn't help me at all. I want it to notify and block. If it notices something suspicious, it will notify, but it will also block that connection. If it is a trusted connection that I know is good, I could always whitelist it. Under the detection sensitivity, I'm going to put it on high, but we could also do customize if you like, and there's 35 different detections that we could play with. We're also going to check off the dark web blocker as well as block known malicious IPs, and if we do want something in the allow list, we could add an entry here, and I'm going to press apply changes. If you do get a security alert, that's going to be done under the system log, and looking at the system log, we could see security detections. We don't currently have anything here, but that's where it would show, and it would also show our honeypots. We want to look at what our firewall rules or our traffic rules are triggering. That's done under triggers. And you can see that the garage was blocked by accessing this IP by this firewall rule, which is my block inter VLAN routing. This next section is going to focus on VPNs, and my computer is now connected to a completely different network than this UDM Pro, as I have two different ISPs here. The first one we'll look at is Unifi Teleport, and this could be done either on your phone or it could be done on your computer. You have to download the Wi-Fi Man app either for the phone or the computer, but I'm doing it currently on Windows. So I'm going to launch the Wi-Fi Man app. Before we get connected to the VPN, I'm just going to show you that we can't reach anything on the network. So we have this USW Pro Max 24 PoE at 192.168.10.107. So let's try to ping it. 192.168.10.107. And we're not able to reach it because we're on a different network and we're not VPN'd in. So going back to settings and then going to our VPN, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to generate a new guest invite. From here, I'm going to copy this guest invite, and then I'm going to open Wi-Fi Man app on my Windows. Here we could put the invitation link. I'm just going to copy it in, and then I'm going to press connect. All right, we've been connected for a few seconds now. I'm going to bring open that command prompt again and press up. And we are now able to hit that device, which is a very easy VPN option. I would probably only use this for my home network. I wouldn't really use it for business. Next, we have the VPN server, which you could do with WireGuard, OpenVPN, or L2TP. I'm just going to show the OpenVPN, but WireGuard is pretty much exactly the same. We could give it a name, and then we choose the IP address that it's using. We also have use alternate address for clients. We have user authentication, and we're going to create a new user. This user is going to be called Cody, and the password is going to be test1234. If we scroll down under advanced and then we click on manual, there's a couple things that we could do. We could select the radius profile, and we could change the gateway and subnet if you'd like, or the DNS, but I'm just going to leave it all on the default and press add. With the configuration file now completed, we need to download this to our machine. And to show you again that we're not connected, I'm going to ping 192.168.10.107, which is that switch. Now what we need to do, we need to launch the OpenVPN client, and we need to load a file into it, which we just downloaded. So I'm going to browse to that file. With the file now open, you could see the profile name, which is the IP, the server host, and then the username. I'm going to type in that username of Cody. We're going to press connect, and then it's going to ask us for our password. It says to put in our password, which was test1234, and then we'll press OK. You can see that it's now connected to the VPN, so I'm going to try to ping that switch again. And as you can see, we're able to access the resources on our network. The next VPN, and probably the best for business, is the Unifi Identity free version. And how we go to that, we go to our OS settings and then admins and users. Over on our users, we could either add a new user. I'm just going to use my user that's already here and then click on it. Now, under our settings, we have different assignments that we could do. We have one-click Wi-Fi and we have the one-click VPN. I'm going to click on the one-click VPN, and then I'm going to press enable. It will tell us to push out an invite to this person's email if they have an email address under there, or we could copy it and then we could follow the steps. I'm going to copy it and then we'll look at the steps. All right, it's directing us right to Unifi Identity. It's saying Unifi Identity desktop endpoint, or we could set it up on our phone. I'm going to download the desktop version as that's what I'm working on. With the endpoint now downloaded, we need to load our credentials into it. And you can see it's automatically loading our credentials, and then we should be able to connect to the VPN. Now in the bottom of my screen, you see Unifi Identity, and we also see the VPN. If I click this on, it's going to automatically connect us. And just like that, it says connected. Let me bring up the command prompt again, and then we're going to hit the up arrow, and we should see these pings go through, and we do. Now we need to create some firewall rules for our VPN, because this VPN could access literally everything. The only thing I want my VPN to access is my Synology NAS. And you can see this connection here. I'm on IP address 192.168.8.3, and this would be a /24, I believe. So we're going to go over to the settings wheel. We're going to go to profiles and then IP groups. We're going to create new, and this will be VPN users. Under the type, we're going to be IPv4 subnet, and I'm going to type in 192.168.8.0/24, and I'm going to press add. Now the IP group is added. We need to go back to security, and then we need to go to traffic and firewall rules. We're going to scroll down and create an entry, and this time it's going to be done under LAN out, which applies to our VPN. I'm going to say block VPN to networks, and we're going to drop the traffic. The source is going to be our port IP group of the VPN users, and the destination is going to be the port and IP group of the RFC 1918, and then we're going to add the rule. I'm still connected to the VPN on UID, and if we press the up arrow, we shouldn't be able to hit this switch, and you could see that we're not able to. But now how do we get to accessing our Synology NAS? Well, we need to create an accept rule. So going back to our firewall rules, we'll create an entry. It's going to be done under LAN out, and we'll say VPN users to NAS. We're going to accept the traffic. The source is going to be our VPN users. In the destination, I'll just put an IP of 192.168.10.220, which is my Synology NAS, and then we'll add the rule. But again, we're not done because firewall rules are top down. We could see block VPNs to networks and VPN users to NAS. So we need to drag and drop this above. We could open up the command prompt, and I could ping 192.168.10.220, and you should be able to map network drives now. Another thing that's also relatively new with firewall rules for our VPN is the ability to block out the web interface for our UDM. If I open up a new tab right now and I go to one of the gateways, we're going to be able to hit it. So typing in 192.168.30.1, if I press enter, we're getting to my UDM interface. So we want to be able to block that out. So I'm going to go back to my Unifi UDM Pro, and then we're going to go to profiles. From profiles, I'm going to create one more IP group, and this is going to be gateway IPs. Now I'm going to put in every single network gateway IP under this profile. So 192.168.10.1, 192.168.20.1, 192.168.30.1, 192.168.40.1, and .50.1. We're going to need to create an entry again, and this time it's going to be done under LAN local. I'm going to say block VPN users to UDM interface. We're going to drop the traffic. The protocol is going to be TCP. The source is going to be our VPN users. And the destination is going to be that group that we just created, which is our gateway IPs. And then under the port group, we're just going to have it as 443. I don't have a port group just containing that, So I'm going to press new. Here, I'm just going to say HTTPS, and then we're going to put 443, and then we're going to press create. After that's done, we could press add rule. Now with this rule created, we shouldn't be able to get to any of the gateway web interfaces, and let's give it a try again. So I have 192.168.10.1 opened up. I'm going to press enter, and that should time out. We'll do 20.1. That looks like it's timing out as well. And we'll also do 50.1. And as you can see, all of those gateway IPs are timing out. So our VPN users can't get to our UDM Pro login page. There's one more VPN that we're going to talk about, and that's our Site Magic. This allows us to easily do site-to-site VPNs. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to configure a Site Magic group. It says, please select 2 to 15 sites and ensure that one has a public IP. I'm going to click on the 2024, which is my UDM Pro, and then I'm going to select my mom's dream wall. With that selected, I'm going to press add. You can see all of the different networks that we have. I'm going to say that I want my default to be able to talk to their default, which is on the 1.0, and I should be able to hit their cameras. Now the Site Magic VPN is getting ready. We should see this eventually go green. Right now it is showing that it's disconnected. And it's starting to configure the VPN for us. It is showing this amber connection and it's showing connecting. So this will only take a minute and we'll have the site-to-site running. Now with that Magic site-to-site VPN set up, we should be able to hit their Hummingbird camera. So I'm going to try to ping it. So we're going to ping 192.168.1.133 and we are able to hit it. That's how easy it is to set up site-to-site VPNs. We've now seen the VPN configuration. There's only a few more things for us to look at. One thing that I'm going to note out is this routing. I have both of my internet connections plugged in now, WAN 1 and WAN 2. If we want to route a separate network, say a voice network through our WAN 2, we could do that. I'll show you how to do it just on this computer. I'm going to say route Cody's computer to WAN 2. We're going to send all the traffic and then I'm going to select the device. We'll scroll down and we'll go to my computer and press save. Now we have an interface what we could choose from. We could either go down WAN 1 or we could go down WAN 2. I'll press on WAN 2 and press apply. Now going back to my computer, if we do a trace route, we should see the Bell network pop up. So we'll go trace route, google.ca. We're first hitting my Unifi network, but it should go out to the Bell network that's connected to my WAN 2. And as you can see here, it's hitting 192.168.2.1, which is the Bell modem. This isn't currently in bridge mode, so it's working like it should. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete this route because we're going to test WAN failover. To test the internet failover, I'm going to ping 1.1.1.1-T. I'm going to run downstairs, unplug the cable, and we should only see a few ping drops. All right, and as you could see, we only lost one packet, which is amazing, and failover is done automatically once you plug in a second WAN. We also could have some redundancy between our UDM Pro, UDM SE, or our UDM Pro Max with shadow mode automatic failover. As of the time of the recording of this video, it is still in early access, but I do have a video on it already with my UDM Pro Max, and I'll put that in the description below. And that's going to be it for this video on the Unifi Network complete setup for 2024, and I'm sure I did miss some things as there's a lot to go through. In the coming year, when they do updates, I will release shorter videos to cover those updates. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up button. If you're new here, please subscribe and hit the bell icon. All right, thanks.